Good evening, welcome to A Foreigner in the Philippines. I wanted to talk about some of the letters that we have. We have a lot of letters from couples who are same makeup as Beth and I, a foreigner marrying a Filipina, and the urge on their part to return to the Philippines and take what we have done as some kind of a model. Well, clearly you will have learned by now that you need to be very careful about what you do, and you need to be licensed, of course, which is a long process. Well, the other thing is as well is that once a person reaches a point where they actually want to help others, that there are various dynamics that come into play, and not all of them are a great pleasure, and not all of them are what you would expect. Now, personally, when someone has done something for me, I really feel very privileged to have been helped. So it has surprised me the way that things have unfolded in life for the last two and a half years for Beth and I, where we set forth to help. Well, obviously our travails are all on video, and so everybody knows the mistakes we made, and everybody should know by now the successes that we had. Right now we're in limbo, we're still in waiting, and all things will pass. The waiting will pass, and eventually I guess we'll be given our license. But meantime, what are the lessons that we've learned about help? Help does not always come with thank you. It does not always end with thank you. Some people are overwhelmed by what you do for them, and other people may be overwhelmed, but they can't express it. Now, if you've expended a great deal of effort trying to help somebody, and you have really changed their circumstances and their life, it's natural, until you start thinking about it, it's natural to think, oh, they're going to thank me. And no, that didn't happen always. Now remember, when I was in Fort Myers, I taught someone to drive, and I was instrumental in getting their license. I drove them around. I made sure that they were good drivers. I trained them hard, and they responded to that. Not always happily, of course, because people don't always respond to being told, no, you can't do it like that, you must do it like this. And so harken back to my own days when I learned to drive, and I realized that learning to drive is relatively simple. It's learning to pass a test in the UK. So eventually I had to go to a driving school where they taught me how to pass the test. Quite different. So bearing that in mind and having that as my experience, I helped someone to get their license. When they came out of the test and they walked across and they went up to their mother and told their mother, I passed, I waited for my thank you. Well, that would be natural, wouldn't it? I'd spent a great deal of time in my own vehicle and my own gas, and I'd coached her to be a good driver, and she passed her test first time. Later, after being passed by for a thank you, it was revealed that she was upset with me because I didn't rush up and congratulate her. Well, I didn't, because I was waiting for her to come up to me and say, I passed, thank you for teaching me, and I would say thank you. I would say, this is great, congratulations, I'm very proud of you. And it never, the little scenario that I'd rehearsed in my own mind never happened. And the little scenario that she had evidently rehearsed in her mind never happened. And the two kind of went like that. So sometimes what you expect and what you get are so incredibly different. Beth and I, finally, we decided no judgment when we help somebody, that we don't judge when we actually extend some help to someone, which we haven't done for a while because of our restrictions until we get our license. We're not allowed to solicit for funds and not allowed to do any welfare work. So we haven't been able to help the little kids at, with their lunch money and stuff like that. Well, anyway, we decided that we couldn't actually expect anything. So it was a case of keep your expectations low and your hopes high. Or probably it sounds a little bit better if you do it the other. Keep your hopes high and your expectations low. And if you tend to draw now and then from the Bible, you might remember that even Christ had made the blind see. And I've often wished for that talent myself. But he made the lame walk. He did incredible things. And they walked out without so much of a thank you. And only one man actually came back and said, thank you. So you have to make up your mind when you're trying to help anybody what your motive is. Now, it's been proven, as I've said in another video, it's been shown to be true in research. It's been shown to be true that just the act of being seen, doing a kind act, is beneficial in an emotional, heart-rending way for the person who sees the kind act done. Now, this is against the Bible, because the Bible says, or you can assume it this way, the Bible says that you should not do good deeds in the open. You should do them anonymously, quietly, and then walk away without any acknowledgement at all. And I agree with that, except that in the social media, that has proved to be on various channels that talk about the kind of research that goes on various emotional, spiritual levels. So the particular research that I heard about, which confirmed my own feelings on what happens when people are helped, was on TED. And they do really good talks on TED about all the latest stuff that's coming out. So I'd made my own observation that helping is like a three-way thing. There's the helper and the helped, and there's the spectator watching the two. So it's a third thing. There's the effect that being helped has on the person who is helped, and then there's the effect that it has on the heart of the giver, who is giving, hopefully, unconditionally. Well, it would have to be if it was to be given. So the giving is unconditional for no thought of return. And then you've got the spectator who sees that somebody is giving something to someone else for no thought of return, and that creates an effect on them. And I've had people write to me saying, as I've said in the beginning of this talk, that that's what they would want to do. Lots of others say that's what we're doing. We are doing it in a different way to you, but we're doing it. And then they go into all kinds of stuff that they're doing, putting stuff on for kids, buying school books, all kinds of stuff like that. Very similar in part to what we have done in the past. So the big thing we've learned is that very often not even to be thanked, but often to be reviled for it. So it can produce quite the opposite effect when you help somebody. I remember one in the UK. I was close friends with a couple. This was when I was leading a single life, and the guy was a good friend of mine, and I used to spend time with them as a couple. So at one point the man was unfaithful to the wife, and it proved to be quite a mess. It always does, and I'm not saying that out of any altitude. I've made my own mistakes and paid for them. But in this particular case, I was outside it and a friend of both. And at one point, when I heard about it, I made a point of saying to the wife, probably you won't want me to listen, but if you want me to listen, I will do so happily, and it will go no further. It will just be what you tell me and nothing more. And eventually I got a phone call, and she said, could you come over and do your Marjorie Proops? Marjorie Proops was the most famous in the UK advisor, and she would, well, yes, talk to Marjorie Proops. Marjorie Proops would advise you about all kinds of things. She was a very clever lady. So could I go over there and do my Marjorie Proops and listen? And I went over and I listened, and she poured her heart out, and the advice that I gave to her at her request was, keep your hands clean. Now, even though this has happened to you, it's not over until you say it's over. And in order to be able to do that, it's best to keep your hands clean. Even though very often when people are betrayed like this, they immediately go out and they get their own back. That's how we would say it, and they would seek revenge. And they would go out and they would have an affair, or a one-night stand, or do something which would hurt the other person in the same way as they've been hurt. And it's understandable, but it doesn't keep, it really muddies the water when you do that. Now, this is not the object of this talk. The object of the talk is in saying that you don't always have gratitude at the end of doing any kind of kindness. Now, she did as I suggested, and she kept her hands clean. And eventually, even though there was a lot of heartache and tears along the way, they managed to patch it up and to continue to have a good marriage. They went on to have a good marriage. So what happened then? Well, she never quite forgave me for seeing her at such a vulnerable place. I never mentioned it again. It was never ever mentioned again. And I never told anybody that I'd done that, other than in this way that we're talking about now, where it's 20 or 30 years ago, so I think we're okay on this now. She just couldn't forgive me for seeing her like that. We never got over it. Our friendship never really recovered from that, and it was always less than it had been. And you would think that it wouldn't have affected it like that, but it did. She wasn't able to be grateful. she wasn't able to appreciate what had been done. She thought only in terms of maybe a feeling of shame or embarrassment, of awkwardness, and seeing me reminded her of it every time. So even that was understandable. So when people write to me and tell me that they are intending to help, and that that they've been inspired by the fact that Beth and I do not seek any return. Whatever is said, whatever we are accused or suspected of, we never seek to have a return on it. We made sure right from the very beginning that we kept totally accurate, nitpicking records of everything in, everything out, and all of that was on, both on video, on computer, and in hard copy, and so that helped. So I guess if I'm going to turn this into offering some advice for those who are looking at what we have done, looking at our 6,000 to 7,000 videos showing help being given, you need to realize that help is a multifaceted emotional experience for many people, and it can't be just pigeonholed in one particular way. So just be aware of that and be ready for it. Not everybody will thank you. We secured a life-saving operation for one lady, and she turned on us and actually attacked us. So help will have many different sides to it, and be ready for them all. And the real trick is to continue to be fulfilled by all of the good that you can do. That's the trick. So this is it from me. It's just a little meandering, if anything, and I hope that if you are thinking of helping, just remember that it doesn't bring quite what you think, but you can't let that deter you. It is what it is. You are helping not for return, but the return that you're helping for is the knowledge that you did something that was right. That will be the thing. Thanks for looking in. Bye for now.